Today in our 2014 Ford Explorer, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Curt T-connector vehicle wiring harness with 7-way trailer connector. That's going to be part number C56278. So here's what our Curt wiring harness is going to look like once we have it installed. Now I do want to mention that the mounting bracket is sold separately, but you can pick it up here at etrailer.com. The nice thing about this 7-way is that it is going to have that spring-loaded dust cover, along with a tab to hook onto your 7-way connector so it doesn't unintentionally get pulled out. And with that spring-loaded door, it's going to keep all the dirt, moisture, and debris outside of the connector to help prevent any kind of corrosion buildup. And our 7-way connector is going to give us all the functions that we need so we can get down the road safely and make sure that everything's working on the trailer end. As far as the installation goes, it is going to be relatively straightforward. We're not going to have to cut or splice into any of our factory wiring. There's going to be a simple connection point behind the passenger side wheel well that we'll plug it in, and then we're just going to route our wire over to where we're going to mount it up. To begin our installation, we're going to want to come to the passenger side right behind the rear tire, and if we look up inside the body panel here, we'll find a connector. Now yours may be one-ended like ours here, or you may have a connector that's already connected to something else. In either situation, we want to disconnect it or pull this cover off. So we'll push in on that tab and pull the cover off, and we should find a connector that looks like this. Now our Curt T connector is going to match up to that, so we can take the female end and plug it in. Make sure it locks into place. And if you had another connector, you would plug this end into that. But in our case, since we don't, we're going to take our plug just to make sure no kind of moisture or dirt gets in there. We're going to plug it up, make sure that locks in place. So now we're going to want to route our wires over to where we're going to be mounting our 7-pole. So I'm going to route it along the edge of the body here, going in front of my hitch, so I can avoid the exhaust as much as possible. I'm just going to be running it towards the center, towards the driver's side. That way I can mount up my bracket and get all my wires connected. So we'll just feed our wire through. We can come back with some zip ties and tie up any of the excess. So we're going to be mounting our bracket just to the left of the receiver tube, and our hitch has this bracket here, so it's going to be easy for us to mount it right here. If yours doesn't, we do have a lot of brackets available here at etrailer.com. We'll go ahead and secure all the excess wire behind the hitch so we don't see it. Just going to take a few zip ties and secure that harness to the hitch. That way it's out of the way. We won't have to worry about it getting caught on anything or getting damaged. Now there's a couple holes over here by where our plug is. I'm going to use one of those to put a zip tie around. It will keep that wiring up a little bit, keep it from hanging down. Now that we have our wire rounded over to where we're going to mount our bracket, we can go and mount up the bracket. Now on the top here we're going to have 2 holes, so we'll line it up with the bracket that's on our hitch. We're going to drop down the hardware. We're going to have 2 flathead screws. Drop them down through the top of the hitch. Line our bracket up with them. And then on the bottom, we're going to secure the bracket using these locking nuts. So for right now, we'll just get them on there hand tight so we don't have to worry about the bracket falling off. Put one on each side. And then you can come from the bottom and tighten that nut up, or come from the top using a flathead bit driver. Just want to kind of hold on to that nut. It is a locking nut, so we don't need a wrench. And we'll just snug them up so they're nice and secure. So we're going to take our wire, and coming from the back, we're going to feed it through our bracket. And then we can get ready to wire up all of our wires to our connector itself. Now if we grab the car side connector here, we're going to have two screws that are holding everything in place. So we're going to grab a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're going to remove those. Now keep in mind, once we remove these, the center section is going to come out, but so long as we keep that door shut on the front, it'll stay inside. So if we open the door, we can see that the connector is going to come out. So we can grab it, and you kind of want to pay attention to how it comes out. We're going to have these 3 notches in there, and that's going to let us know which way is up and the correct orientation. Now on the back side of the connector, we're going to have this white plastic piece and this Phillips screw. We're going to loosen up that screw. You don't need to take it out, you just want to make it nice and loose so that we can pass our wires through. We can take the end of our wires, and we're going to feed them in to the back of the connector. We're going to push them in all the way, and if you need to, you may have to either move the loom back or cut some of it off. We're just going to push it back and then open up the door on the connector and pull enough of our wires out so that we can work with them. So that door is not going to be in the way. And then again, we're going to grab a Phillips screwdriver and we're going to loosen up the terminals on here so we can make all of our connections. On the back of the terminals, they are labeled. However, they're labeled to the trailer side of things, so you need to pay close attention to what wire goes where. So we'll start with the number 4 pin at the top. If we're looking at it, it'll be the top left-hand side. We'll loosen up that set screw. You don't want to take them all the way out, you just want to loosen them up so that little metal piece will come up and we can slide our wire in. Now that one is going to be the black wire. So we'll take the insulation off, make sure that that little keeper is moved. We'll slide our wire in place. So make sure you get that set screw nice and secure. The wire isn't going to come out and it's not going to have any loose strands to where it could possibly arc over to the other terminals. And you're going to repeat that for all the rest of the wires, loosening the set screw, putting the wire in and tightening it down, and we're going to go around the terminal, and each one is going to be labeled, so we're going to match them up color for color. So starting at the top one, the black wire here, if we move around, it's going to go the black wire, then our brown wire, blue wire, then a white wire, then the red wire, then the green wire, and finally the yellow wire is going to be in the center terminal. Now if we look at the front side of those terminals, again, looking at where those notches are, you should have one notch that goes all the way through the connector, all the way to the bottom side here. And if we look in outside of the connector, we'll see that there's a little tab that's sticking up. We want to make sure that that large notch is on the bottom so that it lines up properly. You can kind of pull on the back of the wires a little bit to help it feed it in. Then open the door, line your pins up correctly. You should be able to just gently pull on the wires on the back while you're pushing on the front. Make sure everything lines up. And if you have it lined up properly, it'll seat all the way back in there. And then close the lid and make sure it is all the way back in. So with the connector back on the inside, we can go ahead and put our screws back in. We want to make sure that it is lined up so the screws will go in easily. Put both of them back in. And that'll keep that terminal on the inside from moving, so we can pull back that wire loom. I'm going to take a little bit of it and just kind of push it in the back of the plug. And then we're going to snug down this set screw. Now we don't need to go real tight, just want to make it nice and snug. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to push this little gate down so that the wires won't get pulled at the back of the terminals. So then we can take our connector, we're going to line up the 4 holes with the 4 holes in our bracket. We're going to take the hardware from the bracket kit, we're going to push it through, and then just like before, secure it down with a lock nut. Now we'll get all 4 in place by hand, and then we'll come back and tighten them up just like we did with the ones on top. And again, you just want to tighten these down so they're nice and snug, so you don't have to worry about the connector coming off. So now I'm just going to take the excess wire and again just come back with some zip ties and tie it to the hitch so we don't have to worry about it hanging down while we're driving. So with everything hooked up and mounted, all we need to do now is test our circuits and make sure they're working properly. So I'm going to plug in my 7-way tester, then I'll grab an extra set of hands so they can run my lights and I can verify that they're all working properly. So if I turn my headlights on, we can see that my running light circuit is working, as well as my left turn signal, my right turn signal, and my brakes. Now all we have left to do is hook up to the trailer and hit the road. And that'll finish up your look at the Curt T-connector vehicle wiring harness with 7-way trailer connector, part number C56278 on our 2014 Ford Explorer.